All right, Trendsetters, another great interview here with our partnership with BodySlams.net. Looking so forward to talking to our guest right now. He is former WCW Manager, Sonny Onoo. Sonny, thank you so much for coming on the show. How you doing?
Good. How's the boys doing? How you guys doing? Good?
Trying to stay warm here in the Northeast. How you doing? Where are you at right now?
I'm in Iowa. We're 9 degrees this morning.
9 degrees. Okay, so I will stop complaining then, Sonny, because
that's right. Don't be a little girls. Just remember, there's always worse place than where you are. Just remember that.
He's talking about you, Jeff. Definitely. Sonny, thank you so much for coming on. So listen, you've done a lot of these interviews recently, and we've done a lot of homework on you. So what I want to start off with first is I want to shoot off some random topics for you here that I just want to share and get your thoughts on. So with this whole match between Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey that may or may not happen, we don't know yet. Just talk about your thoughts on the whole women's evolution and just your thoughts on how far it's come since you've managed in WCW.
Well, no, let's put things in perspective though, because I brought the girls. Now I think the girls, including Ronda and all the ladies, deserves amazing amount of prop for where they are right now, and just having that all-women pay-per-view by WWE. They have come a long way, as they say, and back. I think that was a cigarette commercial back in days, probably before you guys were born. I think it was like Virginia Slim's cigarette commercial deal. But anyway, you got to remember when WCW was involved in bringing the women in. We brought Medusa from WWE, and one of the things that to a lot of the audience probably don't know is that Medusa trained in All Japan, All Lady Pro Wrestling back in All Japan, and so one of the things that I was told, and the reason why we brought the great Japanese ladies was because that was the only place we could find somebody who could give Medusa really a match that was deserving for her. And that's why I brought in Akira Hokuto, Chigusa Nagayo, and Bo Nakano, those ladies, Kaoru, all those ladies from back then, Gaia Japan, which is a promotion that was an offshoot of All Japan Pro Wrestling. And those ladies could work. I don't know if you remember the match between there was a little young lady, 4'7", Cutie Suzuki, opened the show with at Nitro.
Okay.
And they just brought the house down. And those girls could work amazing matches. And I think that was the beginning. I mean, I got to tell you, if you can go on YouTube and look at some of the ladies match from the late 80s and early 90s, and you'll find that those matches are so tight and so stiff. You can't but help yourself ooze and ah of some of their maneuvers. And I think, not to disrespect the ladies, but give them props to the ladies at WWE right now that they've gotten to the point where they can match up with those ladies back in, when I was bringing those ladies in from Japan to match up with Debbie, who's Medusa, known as Medusa, Deborah Michelli. And that's so when you tell me that people are, starting to enjoy the ladies and they're finally respecting them as a professional wrestler, athletes, they're not being objectified as just eye candies anymore. And I'm very happy about that. I'm very proud about that they got to where they are now. But, I got to tell you, we were doing that back in the days, and with Medusa versus Akira Hokuto matches.
If there's anybody on the roster in WWE that Sonny Onoo would love to manage, and I know it's tough to select because there's a lot of very talented female wrestlers right now, but who exactly would it be that you would have your eye on that you would want to manage?
Well, I think normal thing for me to do if I was ever given that opportunity that I could help, would be Asuka. Amazing talent. She can do it all. And one of the things I think is holding her back is the fact that, she can't cut an interview because of a language barrier. And for that matter, I would love to manage Nakamura. Just the fact that I think I can help the story along. I think one of the hardest thing to do, what people doesn't realize on American pro wrestling scene, is that it's a storyline driven, and when it's storyline driven, it's hard to read a book if you can't tell the story. And you can't just like reading a blank page of first 5 pages, and all of a sudden there's a fight scene, and you don't know what's what. You don't know the motivation, you don't know the story behind it, why the matches are. And that's what the problem, for them to get to the next level, to the top level, in order for you to be successful, an American pro wrestling television show is exactly that. They need to be able to, properly communicate. And, manager always has been, and that's the role they played, and that's the part that I would love to help out.
Yeah, speaking of that, you're right, Sonny, on the basis that, being able to tell the story and kind of cut through that language barrier seems to hinder a lot of individuals. But, to me, something that I just think about right now in terms of a story that just speaks volumes in terms of even if there is a language barrier is the storyline that we saw in the trilogy or 4 matches we saw with Kenny Omega and Okada. And to me, that spoke volumes in terms of just storytelling in the ring and psychology. Now, speaking of guys like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and Cody, and everybody's talking about January 1st and what could possibly happen between the two, I want to focus a little bit more on New Japan in the terms that, I give so much credit to New Japan, something that I've watched. It's definitely an alternative from what you normally watch with WWE programming. So would you think a company like New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, the way they're all collectively working together, could somehow at one point be kind of similar to what we saw maybe down the road where there was a WCW and WWE, not necessarily competing against each other, but to a high echelon just like that?
Well, it takes so much production value, and the juggernaut that the WWE is. I can't imagine the another entity or company being able to do what WCW did for 83 weeks. Plugging Eric Bischoff's podcast here.
83 weeks. Where's Conrad?
Yeah, but it's I can't see anybody being able to do that just because the financial backing that you would need necessary. You got to remember WCW was backed by, owned by Turner Network Television, and that's AOL Time Warner. So they have amazing amount of resources and be able to compete and put WWE or WWF at the time against the wall. But having said that, I think it was the best time of wrestling. The competition is great for wrestling. I think they worked hard to get their product up, to compete against WCW, and WCW did everything it can to create NWO and a great storyline to create bigger viewership. Now, to answer your question, I think it's very difficult without having that kind of financial resources to be able to compete against WWE. Now, because of you got to remember the universe changed now. There's you can watch television through your phone. The free streaming. There's a lot more platform that you can watch stuff from, and that's great for a lot of independent wrestling. and international wrestling that you can't watch it on regular television here. So I think those are all good that we get a chance to see that. But once again, Japanese, like all New Japan Pro Wrestling shows, you still, although it's a television, but you really go in there to watch the anticipated match, right? Mm-hmm. There isn't a lot of background of where Kenny Omega comes from or Okada has come from. There's a lot of interesting story. Okada started out being Ultimo Dragon, who I manage even to this day, at his dojo in Mexico. That's where he learned his craft. So, those are the backstory that I think would be great. You could do that through, that New Japan Pro Wrestling fan can get to identify more and care more about the character. But their format is not designed for that. Their format is designed to see, hey, it's more like how they promote old boxing days. You know what I mean? Two great competitor competing against each other. That's basically it. That's their storyline is just very simplified like that. They're not really producing backstories and angles. So it's order for them to do what WWE is doing, they'll have to compete against them at that level where you can tell the backstories. And I don't think they have a means or and desire to really do that at this point.
They are currently under a new leadership now, Harold Mee there. And, of course, they will be part of WrestleMania weekend here, selling out Madison Square Garden alongside Ring of Honor for the G1 Supercard. Do you know anything about this new leadership? Do you know anything about the new group that's involved with New Japan? And your thoughts really quick on the G1 Supercard during WrestleMania weekend. To sell out Madison Square Garden is something very historic, and for Ring of Honor and New Japan to do this, it's got to be a huge achievement.
Yeah, I think because pro wrestling was controlled by territory, they still had WWE had a relationship with many of the arenas, including iconic New York Madison Square Garden. And for them to get in there, I think they were told no a few times, and for them to get in there, being able to get in there, and of course, you got to remember what New Japan's doing is that because of WrestleMania weekend, as you know, many independent promotion, aside from WWE, have an event all week long, week before and week after that weekend. So, they're riding on a coat wave of WWE, whether they like to admit it or not. So, it's a good move on their part. And I know what they're trying to do. And the new management would like to expand into U.S. market. But if I were New Japan, who would I call to? If that's their goal is to compete against them, who would you call to help you?
I wonder. He might have his own podcast with Conrad Thompson, I believe, and I believe he's one of your friends as well, right?
Yeah, that's who I would call. If I were New Japan, that's the first person I would reach out, wouldn't you? I mean, that would be even if you just brought him in, just to get the fans, including me and everybody else, you guys, just to get their lip wet a little bit. You name Eric Bischoff into your fold, that could create a lot of interest in professional wrestling, right? Since New Japan's being number 2, yeah. Mind you, they're distant number 2, but if they're objective to being able to spoken in the same sentence with WWE, I think that's what I'd be doing.
I mean, he pushed WWE to its limit, those 83 weeks. Nobody can say that he pushed WWE to the brink, and Eric. I know you can't speak for Eric, but you're friends with him. You come in contact a lot. Do you still think he has that itch to do something like that? Do you still has the itch, that fire to run a company like New Japan or consult or be part of the wrestling business again?
Oh, like I said, I can't speak. Like you said, I can't speak for him. But I can tell you this, Eric and I just had a conversation just a couple of days ago. We're planning on going to Japan. Masa Saito, which is our dear friend who passed away earlier this year, Masa Saito had more to do with, the relationship that very successful relationship between New Japan and WCW. And, he played a big part in the success of WCW with New Japan talent. And because of all the, everybody from Dean Malenko to Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Ultimo Dragon, Chris Jericho, all those guys came in not as a big star. Now, they were star in their own right and their own realms, but they came in and really boosted that cruiserweight division, which WWE kind of left it out there for us to have. So we took these great talent, and I think one of the things that WCW is known for is elevating those guys into a next level. And you got to remember, most of those guys that I just mentioned worked for WCW, and he was worked for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he was on the New Japan Pro Wrestling contract. So allowing them to be signed by WCW and being able to work at New Japan under that same contract, that was all Masa Saito and Eric Bischoff that created that synergy. And that helped each of the company. One of the successful time in New Japan history is that period where we were most successful.
There's no question about that, Sonny, but something that you mentioned before, how Jeff brought up the fact that Madison Square Garden would be sold out by New Japan and Ring of Honor combining for the Supercard. But there's something to be said, too, in terms of like what you mentioned before. All promotions are trying to, in a sense, ride that tidal wave of momentum that WrestleMania brings to whatever town they are when they do arrive in that area. But there's something to be said, too, about Chicago, Illinois, and All In for the mere fact that was just a single event, basically, which seemed to kind of harness the revolution that seems to be going on in professional wrestling right now. There's a boom period going on, it felt like, in 2018. 2019 seems to carry that same type of momentum. So what were your thoughts initially when you heard about the event of All In, Cody and the Young Bucks combining their money to bring in all this independent talent, which, unless you were watching WWE programming, you didn't know existed, but still had that same type of atmosphere and feel as a WrestleMania weekend? Is that a good step in the direction in terms of how I mentioned my first question before, can anybody actually be at that level? But it seems like to be a good sign now that with technology being the way it is, an event like All In can sell out under 30 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I work for Fight TV. Fight TV, they have over 5 million subscribers on their app, and having that kind of people, that kind of numbers, a universe that you can just a touch button and watch whatever you want from anywhere in the world, that helped a lot. Technology has changed, and I think there's a resurgence right now for independent wrestling. I believe, and I don't know this for sure, but I did work with Pentagon, who was one of the rising star of as a luchador out of Mexico City, and I kind of chatted him a couple of weeks ago when I was in San Diego. There was a match versus Ultimo Dragon versus Pentagon. And I was involved in a match and got to spend some time with Pentagon. And one of the things that, he says, hey, I asked him if he was going to WWE, and he said, I work 4 to 5 days a week. I get to pick and choose, and I make more money doing what I'm doing and have nobody controlling me. And I make more money than I can make and working for a big company. So, because of technology, because of independent scene in the United States, and popularity is so big that, guys like Pentagon wants to stay as an independent. And that should tell you something, I think, I don't know if the Young Buck and those guys are being offered some deals. I would think they will be to go to WWE, but I don't know if that's such a great idea with what they got going on, you know?
Do you think it's something to do with more creative aspect of it? Because that, from a fan's perspective, I tend to see that, financial stability is always something you always look for. But like you just mentioned Pentagon saying he's working 4 or 5 days a week. He's picking and choosing his schedule, and he has that freedom.
Probably gets to be creative, too, and is in charge of his character and where he wants to go as far as direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Would you think from a talent standpoint, from your standpoint, would that be something that, you would kind of bypass the money to have the same ability to make that same amount, but also have that creative control of yourself, of developing and making your own mistakes and kind of figuring out your way in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I just noticed I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they brought in, I'm trying to think of the luchador's name. There was a couple of, pretty significant luchadors that was signed by WWE. I'm trying to think of his name. But they brought in on a 6-man tag match, I think maybe a week ago or so, and it kind of, I think that they went over a match, but once again, including me, you kind of lose them in that, character development, how they promote you, all those things, it plays into a part. And obviously, like you said, financial stability is one thing, but at the same time, there's a lot of independent contractor out there that wants to stay independent contractor and having some say-so about, your character development.
Sonny, this is great, too, talking about character development and how the difference is between the Attitude Era and, the Monday Night Wars to now where everything seems like more scripted and, you see somebody like Becky Lynch who's been given the opportunity and she took the ball and she's rolled with it. She's become maybe the hottest thing right now in wrestling. But talk about back then when maybe there was more of ability for you guys to take chances and not have to have things more scripted where there's maybe just bullet points and it's basically you going out there. Do you think that's something in wrestling that's been a negative where now you've been given a script and you're kind of told what to do? Just talk about that difference that you see now in wrestling today.
Well, like I said, I from what I see, I think scripted actual interviews and stuff like that. One of the greatest interviewer is obviously, you take somebody like Ric Flair who can capture your attention on the screen when that man talks, and not to mention, is he going to take his clothes off? But guys like Ric Flair was never given, and certainly in WCW, they'll give you this is point A, and this is point B, and this is where we want to go to point C. Now, nobody ever told Ric Flair or, good 90% of the talent how to do their promos. You know what I mean? And for that matter, Ric Flair, what you see on television is Ric Flair that I knew, off the camera as well. But he is, you take somebody talent like that, who is so good on a stick, and I just don't see anybody like that, or they're not cultivating anybody like that. Since you don't have the freedom that you have or you had back in the days, I think it kind of comes through in their product.
Sonny, do you think with the evolution we are now, where, for example, I think WCW is the first actually company that implemented, the ability of boosting up your young talent and people that need work in terms of the power plant. Now you look at it from what the power plant's idea was to where the performance center is now, and how WWE are bringing talent from all over the world, not just in professional wrestling but from other sports, to kind of show them the quote unquote, from what I hear from time to time, the WWE style. Do you think right now, being a young person in this industry, or if you're a young up and comer and trying to make a name for yourself, do you still think it benefits you to go out and visit the world in terms of different styles, of the Japanese style to the luchador style to the European style? Does it benefit a young talent to do that, or do you think WWE has the right mindset in terms of how they want to integrate new talent coming up in this industry?
Yeah, I really think, I look at it in terms of since it's such a creative, environment that professional wrestling is. When you put in the packages, I think it hurts the product Yes, the product is always good, always the same, but after a while, it doesn't matter how good it is. You get tired of eating the same food. You know what I mean? And I think having a variety into that, or spontaneity of being able to see something is different and refreshing, and I think it's needed, and especially on television product. If you keep doing the same format, same thing over and over again, and same packages, and same meal being delivered, it doesn't matter how good it is. You're still going to get, gee, I wonder what that next door Chinese restaurant looked like. And I think getting back to what you said, I think for young talent, being able to work for New Japan or Wrestle One or All Japan, being able to wrestle over there, having that knowledge is so important. Or for that matter, to go to Mexico and wrestle the lucha style of wrestling, because they are different. And if you go to a lucha show in Mexico City, you go, wow, what a different than what you've been seeing on television. And you also have to remember their matches, except maybe on pay-per-view, their matches are television segmented matches. Sometimes you'll have a 3 minutes of entrance and you're going to have a 2-minute match. So they really don't get to show their stuff and or create a storyline within a match. Now you take New Japan and it's opposite of that. A lot of the story are being told within the ring while they're doing the match, which is setting up for next 2 or 3 matches, that is going forward. So I think those are the things that, and if you're going to go to Japan, and my recommendation to you is, you better be in a shape to maybe go 30-minute match. 30-minute single match. If you really think about it, how long that is in a ring, you better be in shape, and the condition going to play a part, and you don't want to be getting gassed after 5 minutes into the match, and you can't continue, or you miss a spot, or you botch a move, and that could hurt or kill somebody. So those are the things I think it's important that it's a learning process that they need to have that kind of knowledge in their repertoire.
Talking to Sonny Onoo, former WCW manager, who wore so many hats with the company. And, of course, he will be at WrestleCade November 23rd to the 25th at the Benton Convention Center, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Tickets available at WrestleCade.com. Special photo ops with him and Ultimo Dragon. So that's going to be great to see. So if you're in Winston-Salem for WrestleCade, definitely go visit him. It's going to be a great 3-day wrestling convention during Thanksgiving weekend. Sonny, 13 years to the day that we lost Eddie Guerrero, and obviously you were so integral in the relationship between New Japan and WCW liaison, so to say, back in the time. Any memories of Eddie when this time of year comes by?
Well, Eddie was such a great guy. We would play Jim Rummy in the back waiting for our matches at Disney. And one of the things that I would play games, and I was pretty decent at it, but we both play games, and we would take our winnings and donate our money to our respective causes. And so he was always generous. One of the funnest time I ever had with Eddie was the Eddie and Chris Benoit and myself. We were in Tokyo. Got caught in hurricane, and everything shut down, and we were on, I believe we were at the Kyo Plaza, and maybe we were at Tokyo Dome Hotel, maybe we were, and there's American restaurant there, and we spent our time just, we went outside during a storm, and there was no cars outside, everything is shut down. And here are 3 of us trying to find get some refreshment in an area and try to find something. and having a lot of deep thought about the conversation about where we came from, how we got there, and where we are now, and talking about this time of the year. Eddie worked the show for WWE in Des Moines, Iowa. So my son and I went down and visited him and went to backstage and hung out a little bit. And he says, "Why don't you come up to Minneapolis?" For I think it was a Raw, and he said, "Hey, we'll get you some tickets." And when I called, that's when I got the news that next morning when I was on the way up to Minneapolis is that they found Eddie at the Marriott Hotel. It's almost cliche to say, the good die young, but he was one of the good guys. He was very generous, amazingly talented, and it's very sad this time of the year thinking about the guys that it's already gone.
It's very difficult to think about all the great talent that just left this earth too soon. Had so much more to not only give us the audience, but to give to the industry and the business that made them. Sonny, something I always find funny, and for myself particularly, as I think retrospectively of when I get a chance to speak to somebody like you, is that if you look back in the '90s, and you look back in the early 2000s, the business was very protected. People didn't want to talk about what happened behind the curtain. Now it seems to be something of the norm. Obviously some secrets are kept secret still, but people are more giving in terms of talking about it, discussing it. Do you think that's a great step in terms of the industry now, in terms of really treating it as it's a business and it's show business, but also appreciating the art form of it? Do you feel or as if more people kind of want to know too much about it, and the illusion, the fantasy sometimes gets lost in the shuffle?
Yeah, and I agree with you. Is that look, when you and I go to a movie, we don't sit in a seat and critique the movie and says, "Oh, he didn't really blow up," or "He didn't really giant because I saw him on TV yesterday." That thought does not even, it cross our mind when we're watching the product, right? And we don't go to a wrestling show and it says, "Oh, that was, that's fake. He didn't really." Listen, I'm telling you, these athletes that perform these maneuvers. There's nothing fake about somebody who's doing a moonsault from a top turnbuckle and landing on you. I'm telling you from experience. I had a Jimmy the Snuka who I'd taken his splash, which I wear as a feather in my cap, and there was nothing fake about a guy who weighs 260 pounds splashing you. And every time I take one of those little bumps from a wrestler, I get a little bit more respectful for what they do day in and day out. And to answer your question, it's suspended reality, right? I want to get lost in the match. I want to see the craft. Knowing a little bit more than average probably fan, I might see things a little bit different, but I'm always amazed by the great matches that I get to see. You got somebody who like a Vader. Remember, he used to do the moonsault. The man was, the 300-pound man doing stuff like that. What an athlete!
All right, Sonny, you mentioned Eric Bischoff before, and you guys go way, way, way back. And just talk about your friendship now and just how influential he's been in your career ever since you got into wrestling, because I know he gave you your opportunity in the wrestling business. Talk about just your friendship and just just quick thoughts about Eric Bischoff in general.
Well, Eric always has been very, very competitive, amazingly competitive individual, and so given opportunity, I knew Eric was going to succeed one way or another. So, that's without, I think everybody who knows Eric Bischoff, knows that given opportunity, he's going to be successful. We go back in a sense that we were, in our 20s competing in martial art tournament all over the United States, Eric is a legit, I mean, he liked to scrap. He was a scrapper, and I think that plays into the way he conducted himself, and it doesn't surprise me at all how successful he's been. We go back long ways to the dates. When we were scraping $20 so we could go to a karate tournament, so we could fight somebody, and without fighting without getting in trouble and going to jail. So that was kind of objective, and so having one of the reasons I got into it was because Eric and I was talking about kickboxing event, the television, that we wanted to get it going. I fought for PKA, which was a Professional Karate Association, in early 80s or mid 80s, mid 70s, I should say, mid 70s to early 80s. I fought at the bantamweight, and Eric fought on. Matter of fact, I think Eric fought on CBS television in one of those weekend sports, CBS Sports. I think he fought as a middleweight, like 165 pounder.
Hey, it was no joke. You were top ranked, and don't let the good looks fool you. Bischoff could handle his own, right? I mean, like you said, you have to be kind of a scrapper. You got to have a moxie to be in this business, especially the wrestling business. So, from what everyone says, back then it was so cutthroat. It's the territories. It's, you had the Monday Night Wars. You have to have that special something to go toe-to-toe with Vince McMahon, and then, everyone's saying that, oh, if Vince would have showed up at that pay-per-view, he would have kicked Eric Bischoff's ass. I don't know, because Eric, in his own right, was a very tough dude.
Yeah, Eric could scrap. I mean, mind you, he was one of the, ranked fighters at 165-pound weight class. And I think, and all of us, loses our fight when we run out of gas. But I don't know what kind of condition Eric was in, but I know he was legitimately training for it, in case Vince did show up. So, 1975 to 1981, I was number one in the world at PKA.
Yeah.
Eric used to train in the same gym as I did. So, he's no slouch. Actually, that would have been a pay-per-view. I would have actually paid.
Yeah, definitely would have
to see that fight.
Yeah, and now Eric Bischoff, of course. Now the success now is delving into all the stories behind the scenes, and 83 Weeks is one of my favorite podcasts alongside Conrad Thompson. Really does a great job. Isn't it surprising how the wrestling fans are one of the best wrestling fans? They're so loyal. They love the behind the scenes. They're very nostalgic. This whole boom of podcasting and wrestling podcasts, you ever thought about yourself, maybe the Sonny Onoo podcast or anything like that? Have you ever thought about doing something like that? Maybe taking advantage of this boom as far as like our thirst for wrestling?
Yeah, no. One of the things that most amazes me is like WrestleCade. We're all going to be there. I'll probably see you there, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully. But WrestleCade is next weekend.
Right. The fan is what's amazing thing about the fan that remembers us, and of course this is all being helped by WWE 24/7 network that shows all the Nitro shows. And golly, I was on a lot of those Nitro shows and Thunders. So, that helps. And I'm always amazed that the fans are willing to, pay a few bucks and give my autograph and get a selfie with the guy who, by the way, the guy who started doing a selfie on national television.
And how about that, right? Don't you wish you would have thought of the selfie stick there, Sonny? And then you would have been, how amazing would that have been?
But you got to remember, I'm the one who was. I'm sure the other people has done selfies. Before that. I'm sure when the camera was invented, the guy figured out how can I take a picture of myself.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that was being done. But you got to remember, that I'm the guy who was doing it week in and week out before they were called selfie on my trusted Fuji camera. Trying to solidify the moment of my entrance at WCW.
And I also want to share a story, too, because you know how fans will go up to you and share a story. I actually was fortunate enough to meet you at an event here in Jersey. I think it was Janela versus Ultimo Dragon. And you guys, and you guys had to, you guys were again making the next town. And you guys were very courteous enough to say hello to me and my co-host, and I always remember that because Ultimo Dragon, to me, one of the very best to ever do it. And then just to see two guys that we saw growing up watching WCW, just it was a good time, and I just wanted to thank you for that too. Wanted to appreciate you taking the time out to say hello.
Well, yeah, I think this is another thing that people forget. I think a tendency when you on top of the games, being on television, you because maybe I'm older than a lot of the guys I was with. I'm about 10 years older than a lot of these guys I worked with. I always used to tell them, I said, hey, you're going to meet the same people on the way down. That's number one. and number two, reason why you are who you are is because these fans. So, I always sign autographs, and I always, and give a few moments. And I always say that to all my guys. I said, listen, you gotta give these fans what they want because they're the one who supports you, And I think that's something that every talent who appreciate got to learn to appreciate the fans. Yeah. They're the one who come and see you, whether because they hate you or because they love you.
Yeah. And Sonny Onoo giving us awesome interview here. And my final question to you is, we talked about memories of Eddie, but there's also somebody too that continues to amaze me every single time. He always reinvents himself. He's always doing something different. And I was able to go on the Chris Jericho cruise. And somebody who I have a lot of respect for is Chris Jericho. You obviously know Chris Jericho and have had come in contact with him. Observations of how he's been able to just turned 48 to continue to reinvent himself and continue to do things that are unpredictable, because with social media it's tough. Where he's going to be, he's going to show up here, this and that, but the ability to continue to reinvent and surprise the fans. How are you surprised that Chris has lasted this long? Are you amazed how far he's come as far as being able to do his band, the Jericho Crew? Just your thoughts on Chris Jericho.
Well, Chris was amazingly talented. I can tell you this honestly, that when speaking of cruise, one of the last time he was with WCW was at a Bruce cruise that WCW had way back when, and we were on the same cruise. We were on that cruise together, and I remember asking him not to go to WWE, that because he was amazingly talented, individual. But one of the things that really makes him stand up, after all these years, that he can, he took care of his body. That's one, and he can still perform. And two, he's really smart. He's smart about the business. And he takes every advantage. And this new social media that we have, and everything from Twitter to Facebook, he knows how to promote. And because of who he is, we're interested in what he's doing. So. He's just a great guy, and he worked in New Japan a few times, and here's the guy who can work everywhere and be successful. So there isn't too many great stories, but Chris Jericho's story is one of the good ones.
Sonny, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Of course, you will be next week at WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, at the Benton Convention Center. Tickets go to WrestleCade.com. Special photo up with him and Ultimo Dragon. It is one of the best 3-day wrestling conventions out there in the world. So definitely looking forward to that. Thank you so much for coming on. Hope to have you on, in the future here. And thank you for your time, Sonny.
Yeah, don't be a stranger. Feel free to call me anytime. And if you want to know something that really happened way back when, I can tell you an amazing story about a lot of guys that happened while I was with him in Tokyo. So we'll cover that next time.
Oh yeah, we definitely need to. Yeah, definitely because we saw you've done interviews recently, so we kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the current business because you have obviously a very good mind for it. You've dealt with some of the guys here. Especially like the Chris Jerichos and Eric Bischoff. So it's really good to pick your brain on the current topics here, and I think. Listen, Sonny, McMahon is very into bringing managers back now. You got Leo Rush is talking for Lashley, so you never know, Sonny. I mean, if anybody needs mouthpieces, definitely it's Asuka and Shinsuke, and it would be so simple to put you two together, and that would be awesome, I think.
That would be fun. I mean, it would be fun, even if I can help them, elevate themselves a little bit more, get them more in the mainstream. They're already stars, but I think it would be a good fine twist that can elevate them a little bit and at least be able to help them tell the story. But tell your fans, as you already did, I guess, to be sure to come by my table at the WrestleCade and get say hello and get a selfie with me.
And where can we find you on the social media, Sonny?
Oh yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm the Sonny Onoo, so you can find me there and. Yeah, just hit me up and say hello.
All right, Sonny, thank you so much. We'll talk in the future. Again, have a great time. And if we don't talk, have a good holiday season to you and your family.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, and I sure appreciate it. And, tell your fans, wrestling is amazingly fun because it's kind of like reality story that happens right in front of your eyes, right? There's always something going on in front of the screen, and there's always all kind of goofy thing happen on behind the screen. So, listen, I appreciate you calling me and having me on your podcast, and talk to your fans soon.
Talk soon, Sonny. Thank you.